Before we move forward, please like, subscribe, and share Strategic Vanguard and be up to date with the latest news and happenings from the world of defense and strategic affairs. Tune into our video channels in Rumble and YouTube. And if you want to hear the audio version, please tune into Strategic Vanguard Deep Dive in Spotify.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking you into a realm of conflict that's, well, it's mostly invisible. We're exploring a frontier of warfare that operates entirely in the shadows, leaves almost no trace, and has this chilling potential to dismantle whole nations silently. We are talking about biowarfare, the silent battlefield, and maybe more importantly, how this kind of threat could fundamentally change, strategic deterrence as we understand it. Okay, let's get into this. Prepare yourself to explore a type of conflict that's hidden, but terrifyingly real. So, first things first. When we say biowarfare, what are we actually talking about? Essentially, it's using living things, think bacteria, viruses, other pathogens, deliberately as weapons to make people sick or to kill them. It's not like a bomb or a missile. These are weapons that are invisible. They can be highly contagious, and often they're designed so you just can't trace them back. Can you even picture that? A war with no tanks rolling in, no jets screaming overhead, just suddenly an outbreak. A disease that shuts down the economy, swamps the hospitals, and frankly, sows fear way more effectively than explosives ever could.
That really hits the nail on the head. It's those characteristics, the invisibility, the untraceability that completely change the game. It's not just about destruction. It's the insidious way it works. It can destabilize everything from the inside out.
And it sounds like sci-fi, maybe, but this isn't new. Biowarfare, it has a history, a long one actually. You hear these historical accounts, like back in 1346, Mongol forces supposedly throwing plague victims over the walls into Kaffa. Then jump forward, World War I, World War II, Germany, Japan, they were experimenting, anthrax, plague, and Japan's Unit 731. I mean, the stories from Manchuria are just horrific. State-sponsored biological experiments on people. Later, during the Cold War, you had the U.S. and the Soviets with these huge bioweapons programs, weaponizing smallpox, anthrax on a massive scale. Eventually, people tried to stop it. That led to the 1972 Biological Weapons Convention, the BWC, banning production and stockpiling.
Yeah, and the BWC was definitely a landmark agreement, a necessary step. But it's crucial to see that even back then, its weaknesses were apparent. And those weaknesses, well, they've become a recurring theme. Because how do you actually verify that countries are complying when the research can be hidden or look like something else? It's always been the problem.
Right, verification. And nothing really highlighted global vulnerability like the COVID-19 pandemic did it. I mean, whatever you believe about its origins, that crisis was a massive wake-up call globally. It proved, beyond any doubt, a virus could just stop the world, shut down economies, crush healthcare systems, completely rewire international relations, and not a single shot fired, not one missile launched. And you can bet military planners everywhere took notice.
They absolutely did. And it forces a really uncomfortable question, doesn't it? What actually is a weapon anymore? What counts as an act of war in the 21st century when something that looks like a natural event can cause such utter devastation on a national, even global scale? The lines get incredibly blurry.
That is a critical point. So, okay, who are the main players we should be thinking about on this bio chessboard today? Well, China often comes up. There's scrutiny over its dual-use research, research that could be civilian or military. Places like the Wuhan Institute of Virology get mentioned a lot in Western security discussions. Then you have the United States. They have huge biodefense programs, think DARPA, the CDC. But the stated focus is very much on defense, on response readiness, not offensive weapons. Russia. There's still a lot of secrecy around the old Soviet bioweapons legacy and persistent allegations, despite the BWC, that some research continues, and North Korea. The intelligence community generally believes they're quietly building up bioweapon stocks alongside their nuclear program, which is deeply concerning.
And what ties a lot of this together, what makes it so hard to track, is that dual-use problem you mentioned. It's the central dilemma. Research for a vaccine, for public health, for defense against biothreats. How different does that lab equipment, those procedures, really look from offensive research? Sometimes not very different at all. It makes transparency and trust extremely difficult on the international stage.
Okay, let's zoom in on India's position in all this. India signed and ratified the BWC, that's clear. And there are key institutions like DRDOs and INAMAS or the National Institute of Virology. They definitely have roles in biosecurity. But analysts point to gaps. The coordination between civilian health agencies and the military on biosecurity seems underdeveloped. There isn't a single central biological command structure. And maybe most importantly, there doesn't seem to be a clear strategic doctrine doctrine that really folds biological threats into the overall national defense picture.
Yeah.
So you look at the neighborhood, China, Pakistan, both considered potential dual-use players. Is India's current setup enough?
If you connect that to the bigger picture, India certainly has the scientific brainpower. The institutions are there in parts. But that lack of a cohesive, integrated strategy, that's a significant vulnerability, especially, like you said, given the regional dynamics. Bridging that gap between the civilian and military sides, creating a unified biodefense framework, that seems like a critical, non-negotiable first step. Because without that integration, you just have capable parts that don't form a truly resilient whole system.
Which leads us right into this massive challenge, deterrence. How on earth do you deter a threat you can't see? With nuclear weapons, we had MAD, mutually assured destruction. You know I have nukes, I know you have nukes, we can see the silos, the bombers. It creates a terrible kind of stability. But bio, there's no visible stockpile to count, no missile launch a satellite can detect. And often, crucially after an outbreak, who do you blame? Attribution is incredibly difficult, maybe impossible sometimes. This makes these weapons seem, well, attractive for actors who want to fight unevenly asymmetric warfare, rogue states, maybe even terrorist groups. So how do you retaliate if you don't even know for sure who attacked you? And maybe even more fundamentally, how do you deter something that could just be passed off as bad luck? A natural pandemic. It feels like deterrence just breaks down to
It absolutely challenges the core concept. Does deterrence, as we've known it for decades, even apply here? When you can't reliably attribute an attack, when the weapon itself is self-replicating and invisible, does the whole idea need a complete rethink? It's a strategic nightmare, plain and simple. It shakes the foundations of national security thinking.
Yeah, a nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
And then takes us into this murky gray zone surrounding biowarfare. The ethics, the treaties, the blurred lines. We mentioned the BWC's weakness. No real verification body like the IAEA for nuclear stuff. So what happens? Well, nations fund research. They call it vaccine development, biodefense, perfectly legitimate things. But this dual-use nature means those same labs, that same research could theoretically be pivoted towards military applications quite easily. So the ethical line gets really fuzzy.
Yeah.
And international law, it feels like it just hasn't kept pace with the science.
That's precisely it. Biotechnology is moving at lightning speed. Gene editing, synthetic biology, the capabilities are exploding. But our legal frameworks, our ethical guidelines, our international treaties, they are lagging way behind. And that gap between what's possible scientifically and what's governed legally or ethically, that's a really dangerous space. We're playing catch up.
Okay, so given this complex, frankly alarming picture, what should India be doing? What are the concrete steps towards resilience? We've touched on some, but let's list them out. 1. Develop that centralized biodefense command. Integrate military, health, science. Make them talk, work together seamlessly. 2. Invest smartly in dual-use biotech. Yes, for defense, but also having the capability itself can act as a form of deterrence, knowing you can respond. 3. Really strengthen the early warning systems. Better biosurveillance. Use AI to spot outbreaks faster, maybe even predict them. 4. On the world stage, push for BWC reforms. Advocate for transparency, for some kind of workable verification. It's tough but necessary. And 5, maybe underestimated, education. Making sure the public, and crucially the leadership, understand these aren't movie plots. This is a real modern danger.
Exactly. And if we connect these back, these aren't just items on a military checklist. They're really foundational elements for national resilience. Building the capacity to withstand these kinds of shocks, whether they're deliberate attacks or natural outbreaks that have similar effects, it's about making preparedness a whole of society effort, not just a defense ministry issue.
So wrapping this deep dive up, what's the bottom line for you listening? Biowarfare isn't science fiction anymore. It's here. It's a 21st century threat, but with ancient roots. Silent, shape-shifting, potentially devastating. It forces us globally to completely rethink deterrence. And for you, being informed means understanding this invisible battlefield. A battlefield that isn't fought over land, but potentially within our own bodies, our societies. It's felt, not seen.
Which leaves us all with a rather sobering question to ponder, doesn't it? In this age of incredible technology, AI, drones, hypersonic missiles, all the things we talk about, what if the most dangerous weapon facing us is still microscopic? If that's true, how does that fundamentally change what you think national security really means? What does true safety look like in that world?